What's going on YouTube? Florida Man Knives here with a really quick review video of the Spyderco Native 5 Lightweight. Now, in my opinion, this is a knife that is definitely very underrated across the board, but that might be because there are so many different options out there in this size range, especially from Spyderco. Now, getting into it, you are going to have an overall length just under 7 inches, as you can see right here. Your blade length is going to be 3 inches, and your handle length is going to be 4 inches. Your handle thickness is definitely going to be pretty thick, relatively speaking, to some other models. 0.43 inches, a little bit thicker than the Delica, for example, but the weight on this guy is going to be fantastic. I do want to note, it is definitely not the advertised 2.45 ounces. By my scale, you can see it comes in at 2.33 ounces, which is fantastic for sure. And that is going to be because it is going to be made of FRN with no stainless steel liners, of course. And that does not bother me at all. I mean, you can bend the FRN in if you want to, but I don't really see how that would be an issue when you're going to use the knife. This one does feature CPM S90V and the Teal FRN, of course, but I will be referencing the base model, which does come in at $108.50 and features S30V. This one, as I stated, is an exclusive, but the base model, it's just a great price overall, great steel, and just a great lightweight option for sure. Of course, you can see it does feature a lockback design, and in my opinion, that I have no complaints about that whatsoever for sure. I definitely would prefer that to something like a liner lock, for example. And you can see for a Spyderco, it looks a little bit different than you might expect because there is no thumb ramp. That is going to be because the thumb hole right here does not protrude. It's just a different blade shape overall, for example, to something compared to the Para 3 Lightweight. And for a lot of people, I think that's going to be a big positive. If you're coming from something like a Benchmade, this is going to maybe feel a lot more similar, and you might not notice it as much as you would another Spyderco. Now, me personally, I actually have come to prefer the thumb ramps and don't really like this as much as I thought I would. Part of the reason is because when I actually do grip up on the knife, my thumb kind of lands above this jimping right there, and that part of the blade actually starts to swoop down. So again, just me personally, that is a complaint that I have, or something I don't like about the knife, I should say. But for the average person, I think that would actually be beneficial. Now, my other complaint on this knife is going to be the pocket clip. I do, of course, have a deep carry MXG gear pocket clip on this knife, but the stock one, just, it's from Spyderco, it's not a deep carry, and that's to be expected. So again, just my personal complaint there, and something I wanted to note. Overall, though, this is definitely a really great slicer. You have a full flat grind, as you can see. The blade thickness is going to be, relatively stout compared to the Delica, but definitely thinner than something like a Paramilitary 2, for example. And the cutting edge is going to be 2.44 inches because of that 60/40 forward finger choil, which I definitely am a huge fan of. I mean, that's the whole point of this knife, is so you can really kind of grip up there and get a just the ergonomics are definitely really great, I will admit. Now, in my opinion, you do have to use the forward finger choil, at least if you have somewhat large hands. My girlfriend, when she did hold this knife, though, was able to hold it back here. However, it puts your finger so far from the blade, and it's such a small knife, I don't really think that would be ideal or necessary on this particular model. But again, short review video here. It is a Golden, Colorado, USA Earth. Fantastic design overall. I think, the performance, obviously, we don't really even need to discuss that. The base model S30V, this one has S90. It's a great blade shape. It's going to be a great slicer. It's just the ergonomics, while are definitely comfortable, just is not, for me personally, relatively speaking. Now, if I were to have this knife, for the rest of my life, and had to get rid of my others, this would obviously be more than enough. It's very sufficient, it's very comfortable, but I just think there are some others out there that I might like a little bit better, and like I said, I'll be doing some comparison videos on those. And this particular model, unfortunately, does have very poor blade centering, so I'm not really sure if that's common or not on the Native 5. I have not really had any issues with blade centering from Spyderco at all, to be honest with you, except for this exact knife. But I definitely do recommend the Native 5 lightweight for sure. 100% do recommend it, especially if you're familiar with knives, that do not have the thumb ramp. Like, it just makes a huge difference, honestly. Like I said, if you'd be coming from something like a Benchmade. And now, if you are super familiar with Spydercos, if you're used to something like the Delica or something like the Paramilitary 2, and you're always using the thumb ramp, then that might be something that is a negative. But that is really just the only big complaint I would have about this knife, other than the thickness. Thickness in the pocket, not a huge negative. You can see compared to the Paramilitary 2, for example, it's going to be pretty much the exact same thickness there. But for how small of a knife it is, I do wish they slimmed it down just a little bit. But that's just my opinion personally. Again, I do recommend this knife, and I would love to hear everybody's thoughts in the comments below. I know that a lot of people are really big fans of the Native 5 lightweight, and I definitely understand that. As always, I really appreciate everyone watching. Thanks.